The Galactic Council mocked Earth Plea. Then the humans stood apart. The great hall of the celestial spire floated high above the planet Virella, wrapped in shimmering rings of light and humming with ancient energy. Inside, under a dome that showed the swirling stars of the galaxy, sat the Galactic Council. Tall, silver-skinned Virelians sat stiffly in their curved chairs, their eyes glowing faintly with calm superiority. Beside them, the Korthans, massive, slow-moving beings with thick hides and deep voices, sat like stone statues. And at the far end, the Zenthars, small and quick, tapped their long fingers on data pads, always calculating, always watching. At the center of the chamber, alone on a plain platform, stood two humans. Daniel Brooks adjusted his simple gray suit, his palms damp but his face calm. Beside him, Lena Ortiz held a small data crystal in her hand, her dark eyes scanning the council members without fear. They had traveled for weeks through folded space just to stand here, to speak for Earth, for all of humanity. High Arbiter Zelkor rose from his seat. He was tall even for a Virelian, his silver robes flowing like liquid metal. His voice echoed through the hall, smooth and cold. Earth delegation, you have been granted audience. Speak quickly. The council has little patience for pleas from unproven species. Daniel stepped forward. He did not bow. He did not lower his voice. Honorable members of the Galactic Council, he began, we come in peace. We come not to beg, but to offer. Earth has watched your broadcasts, studied your laws, and respected your unity. For over 50 years since we first reached the moon and then Mars, we have dreamed of joining you, not as servants, but as partners. A soft murmur rippled through the chamber. Some of the Zenthars exchanged glances. One Korthan let out a low rumble that might have been a laugh. Lena stepped forward now, holding up the data crystal. We bring proof of our progress, she said clearly. Our fusion reactors now run clean and endless. Our medical science can heal wounds in hours. Our ships, though small, have reached the edge of our solar system and returned. We've even begun mining asteroids for rare metals without harming living worlds. She inserted the crystal into a port at the base of the platform. Images flickered in the air above them. Sleek human ships gliding past Jupiter's moons. Doctors using light-based tools to regrow bone. Cities powered by floating solar rings. For a moment, silence. Then High Arbiter Zelkor smiled. It was not a kind smile. How quaint, he said. You burn rocks to make light. You stitch flesh like tailors. And you call this advancement? He turned to the others. This species fought world wars over patches of dirt. They poisoned their own oceans. They split the atom only to build weapons that could end their own kind. And now they asked to sit among us? The Virelians nodded. The Korthans grunted in agreement. A Zenthar spoke up, his voice sharp. They are barely past their planetary cradle. They have no unified government, no single voice. How can they uphold the unified accord if they cannot even agree among themselves? Daniel's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone steady. We are not perfect. But we learn. We change, we grow. That is what makes us strong. Or foolish, Zelkor replied. Strength is order. Strength is control. You humans are chaos wrapped in skin. Lena took a breath. Then let us prove otherwise. Give us a chance. Let us join the accord, even as observers. We will follow your rules. We will contribute what we can. The council members looked at one another. There was no real debate. The decision had been made long before the humans arrived. The motion is clear, Zelkor announced. Earth's petition for inclusion in the unified accord is denied. Unanimously. A wave of laughter, soft, mocking, rose from the gallery above, where delegates from dozens of species watched. Some pointed at the humans. Others shook their heads as if watching children who had wandered into a meeting of elders. Daniel felt the heat rise in his chest, but he did not shout. He did not beg. He simply nodded. We hear your decision. Lena removed the data crystal. The images vanished. The hall felt colder now, emptier. As they walked back toward the exit, the whispers followed them. Primitive, loud, dangerous. They'll destroy themselves soon enough. Outside the spire, their shuttle waited. The pilot, a young woman named Riley, gave them a worried look as they boarded. How did it go? She asked. Daniel sat heavily in his seat. They laughed at us. Lena stared out the window at the glittering city below. They think we're nothing. Back on Earth, the news spread fast. Every screen, every channel, every public square showed the council's dismissal. People gathered in silence at first. Then came the anger, In New York, crowds filled the streets shouting, "We are not nothing." In Tokyo, students held vigils with signs that read, "Earth deserves a seat." In Lagos, engineers gathered in labs not to mourn but to work. But not everyone was angry. Some were ashamed. Some believed the council was right. "Maybe we aren't ready," said one news anchor. "Maybe we're still too broken." Daniel and Lena returned to Geneva, to the United Earth Council chamber, a modest building compared to the celestial spire, but filled with people who had risked everything to build something better. There, they met with leaders from every nation. No one interrupted. No one argued. They simply listened. "They saw our past," Lena said, "but not our future." "They think unity is something you're born with," Daniel added, "but we know it's something you choose." Again and again. That night, as the world slept uneasily, a signal blinked from a deep space probe near the edge of the solar system. It was faint, almost lost in the cosmic noise. But in Houston, an engineer named Marcus Bell noticed it. The pattern was not natural. It pulsed in perfect rhythm, 3 beats, a pause, 3 more. Like a heartbeat, like a call. He didn't tell anyone yet, but he saved the data, and he began to run simulations. Meanwhile, in Nairobi, a cyber analyst named Tasha Moore was digging through the raw feed of the council's broadcast. Something felt off. The way Zelkor had paused before announcing the vote, the way the Zenthars had suddenly gone quiet. She ran decryption algorithms on the background data stream, hidden beneath layers of official code. She found fragments of emergency alerts, coded messages about border breaches, fleet losses, strange energy spikes near the galactic rim. The council wasn't just arrogant. They were scared, and they had lied. By dawn, 2 truths were clear. Earth had been humiliated. But the galaxy was in trouble, and humans, for all their flaws, had never backed down from a fight. The Galactic Council mocked Earth Plea. Then the humans stood up part 2 after the humiliation at the Celestial Spire. Earth did not fall silent. Instead, something stirred deep in the hearts of its people. It was not just anger, it was purpose. In every city, town, and village, humans began to look not at their differences, but at what they could build together. Governments that once argued over borders now shared data freely. Factories that once made weapons switched to building deep space comms arrays. Schools taught not just history, but hope. In Houston, Marcus Bell sat alone in a dim control room, eyes locked on a screen filled with strange waveforms. The signal from the Oort cloud had grown stronger. It repeated every 17 hours, always the same pattern. 3 pulses, a pause, 3 more. He ran every known alien language algorithm against it. Nothing matched. Then on a whim, he tried something simple, binary. The pulses translated into coordinates. Not just any coordinates, but a precise point far beyond Pluto, near a frozen rock nicknamed Whisper 9. He called Lena Ortiz. She arrived within hours, her coat still dusted with snow from Geneva. Together, they studied the data. "This isn't random," she said quietly. "It's a beacon, and it's been waiting." Meanwhile, in Nairobi, Tasha Moore had not slept in 2 days. She had cracked deeper into the council's hidden data streams. Beneath layers of diplomatic noise, she found emergency fleet logs. Entire outposts near the galactic rim had gone dark. Distress calls were being silenced before they could spread. And one name kept appearing, Drakthar, a species the council claimed had been extinct for 10,000 years. She sent her findings to Daniel Brooks through a secure quantum channel. He read the report in his small office in Geneva, his face pale in the glow of the screen. The council hadn't rejected Earth because humans were weak. They had rejected them because they were afraid. Afraid that if Earth knew the truth, that a terrifying enemy was returning, they might panic. Or worse, act. Daniel called an emergency session of the United Earth Council. This time no one argued. No one hesitated. When he showed them Tasha's evidence and Marcus's coordinates, the room fell silent. Then General Eli Dawson, a veteran of the Mars peacekeeping missions, stood up. "If the council won't protect us, we protect ourselves." And so Project Horizon was born. Not as a weapon, but as a shield. Not as a threat, but as a promise. Every nation contributed. Russia sent engineers. Brazil shared rare earth mining tech. India provided quantum computing power. Japan built the fastest comms relays in the system. Even old rivals worked side by side, driven by one thought: we are Earth, and we will not be ignored again. Marcus led the first expedition. A small fleet of 3 ships named Voyager, Steadfast, and Dawn launched from lunar orbit. They carried no weapons, only sensors, drones, and a team of scientists. Among them was Nina Ruiz, a young astrophysicist who had mapped dark matter flows since she was 16. She believed the signal wasn't just a beacon, it was part of something much larger. As the fleet neared the Oort cloud, strange readings filled their screens. Gravity bent in odd ways, time slowed slightly near Whisper 9. Then, as they approached the exact coordinates, the ice-covered rock began to glow, not with heat but with soft blue light. Panels slid open in its surface, revealing smooth metal beneath. "It's not a rock," Nina whispered. "It's a door." Inside, they found a chamber filled with crystalline structures that hummed with energy. At the center stood a pedestal with symbols that matched no known language. Yet when Marcus placed his hand on it, the symbols shifted, forming shapes that looked almost like human letters. Back on Earth, Tasha worked with linguists and AI to decode the interface. They discovered the structure was part of a network, an ancient defense system built by a long-lost race called the Ejix. The Ejix had watched over the galaxy for eons, placing these outposts at the edges of star systems. They had vanished, but their machines remained, waiting for a species wise enough to activate them. They didn't choose the strongest, Lena realized. They chose the ones who would care enough to try. While the science teams worked, Daniel met with world leaders again. He proposed a bold plan. Activate the Aegis array not just for Earth but for the whole galaxy. Even if the Council had mocked them, humanity would not become like them. They would act with courage, not cruelty. But time was short. Tasha intercepted a new message. The Drakthar had destroyed a Korthan colony near the rim. Their ships were unlike anything seen before. Black, jagged, absorbing light and energy. They left no survivors, no signals, just silence. Earth's leaders knew what that meant. The Drakthar were coming inward, toward the core systems, toward Earth. Still, the Council said nothing. They broadcast peaceful messages about trade and unity, while secretly evacuating their own inner worlds. They thought no one would notice. They were wrong. On the day the Voyager fleet returned, the whole world watched. The ships docked at the new orbital station Unity Ring. Marcus and Nina stepped out, holding data drives that contained the key to the Aegis array. Crowds gathered in cities below, not cheering, but waiting, hoping that night. In a quiet room beneath the Swiss Alps, Daniel, Lena, Marcus, Tasha, and Eli met with a dozen others, scientists, pilots, diplomats, engineers. No titles, no ranks, just people who believed in something bigger than themselves. "We can turn it on," Marcus said. "But once we do, the whole galaxy will know. The Council will be furious. The Drakthar might come faster." "Then let them come," Eli said. "We'll be ready." Lena looked at the faces around the table. "This isn't about revenge. It's about responsibility. The Ejix left this for a reason. Maybe they saw that one day someone would have to stand up when others looked away." Tasha nodded. "And that someone is us." No vote was needed. They all knew what had to be done. In the days that followed, Earth moved like a single mind. Power grids were linked. Orbital stations synchronized their systems. Every satellite, every probe, every ship was updated with new protocols. The Aegis array required a massive energy pulse, more than any one nation could provide. But together, Earth could do it. On the morning of activation, the sun rose over the Pacific as it always did. But this time, millions looked up not just to see the light, but to feel it. At exactly 800 UTC, every fusion plant, every solar array, every geothermal station on Earth and in orbit sent a surge of clean energy into the network. The pulse shot through space, faster than light, guided by the beacon signal. Deep in the Oort cloud, the ancient machine woke. Blue light spread across the ice. Then, like a ripple in a pond, the energy expanded outward, touching every hidden node in the system. Planets glowed faintly. Asteroids hummed. Even the moon seemed to shine a little brighter. And far away, in the void between stars, something stirred. The Drakthar fleet slowed. Their sensors screamed warnings. Something old had returned. Something powerful. On Varela, High Arbiter Zelkor stared at his screen in disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. "Humans." They awakened it. Back on Earth, no one celebrated. Not yet. They knew the real test was coming. But for the first time in a long time, they did not feel small. They felt ready. Because when the galaxy turned its back, Earth did not break. It built. It learned. It stood. And now it would protect, not just itself, but everyone. The Galactic Council mocked Earth Plea. Then the humans stood up Part 3 the moment the Aegis array awakened. The galaxy changed, not with a bang but with a hum, a deep, steady vibration that passed through space like a heartbeat. On every world connected to the old network, dormant towers rose from the ground, ancient rings spun in orbit, and shields of pale blue light flickered to life around cities that had forgotten they were ever protected. The Aegis had built their system to last, and now, after countless centuries, it answered a call no one had expected to come from Earth. On Varela, High Arbiter Zelkor stood frozen in his chamber, watching as data poured in from every corner of council space. His silver skin paled. "They did it," he said, voice tight. "The humans activated the array without permission, without understanding." His advisors rushed in, panicked.
"What do we do?"
one asked. Zelkor's eyes narrowed. "We contain this, before it spreads." But it was already spreading. The pulse had not just powered the array, it had sent a signal. A declaration, and the Drakthar heard it. Far beyond the rim, the Black Armada shifted course. Their jagged ships turned as one, like wolves catching a new scent. They had been hunting weak colonies, testing defenses, growing stronger. Now they sensed something greater, something worth destroying. On Earth, there was no panic, only focus. Marcus Bell and his team worked around the clock, learning how to guide the array's power. It was not a weapon, not in the usual sense. It could not fire beams or launch missiles, but it could bend space, redirect energy, and create barriers that even the strongest matter could not pierce. Nina Ruiz discovered that the array responded to intent. If the user sought to protect, not to harm, its power grew stronger. Daniel Brooks stood before the United Earth Council again, this time not as a petitioner but as a leader. "The Drakthar are coming," he said. "They will reach the outer colonies in weeks. The Council is not ready, but we can help," some argued. "Why should we risk ourselves for those who mocked us?" asked a delegate from Berlin. "Because if we wait until they reach us," Daniel replied, "it will be too late for everyone." Tasha Moore had been tracking the Drakthar fleet through stolen council feeds and deep space echoes. She found patterns in their movements, how they avoided certain star systems, how they always struck from the dark side of planets. They feared light, not sunlight but coherent energy, the kind the Aegis array produced. That gave Eli Dawson an idea. "We don't need to fight them head-on," he said. "We just need to shine a light they can't escape." Earth's shipyards worked faster than ever. Old cargo haulers were refitted with Aegis-linked emitters. Small fighters were equipped with drone swarms that could scatter and form energy nets. Even civilian vessels volunteered to carry relay beacons. Among the pilots was Captain Riley Cole, the same woman who had flown Daniel and Lena back from Varela. Now she trained others, her voice calm over the comms as she ran drills near Jupiter's orbit. Then came the first real test. A Korthan mining colony on the edge of Council space sent a distress call. The Drakthar were attacking. The Council fleet had been ordered to hold position, to avoid escalation, they claimed. But Earth did not wait. 3 human ships, Steadfast, Voyager, and a new one called Horizon, jumped to the system. They arrived to chaos. Black ships circled the colony like vultures, firing dark beams that drained power and life from everything they touched. The colony's shields were failing. Eli Dawson commanded the fleet from Steadfast. "Deploy the drones," he ordered. Hundreds of small craft shot out, forming a wide ring around the colony. Each carried a tiny piece of the Aegis signal. When activated, they linked together, creating a dome of soft blue light. The Drakthar beams hit it and vanished, absorbed, turned into harmless warmth. The Drakthar recoiled. Their ship shuddered as if in pain. For the first time, they retreated. On the colony, Korthan miners stared up at the sky, stunned. They had expected death. Instead, they saw human ships holding the line. Back on Earth, the news spread. Not just of victory, but of mercy. Humans had saved a world that had voted to leave them defenseless. The Council could not ignore it. Zelkor called an emergency session. "The humans are acting outside the accord," he declared. "They are provoking the Drakthar." But the Zenthars were not so sure. One spoke up. They stopped an attack without firing a single explosive round. Is that provocation? Or wisdom? Meanwhile, the Drakthar regrouped. They were not defeated, only surprised. Their leaders, hidden deep within a command vessel shaped like a broken star, studied the humans. They had faced many species. All had fought with fire and fury. But these used light like a shield. They protected even their enemies. That made them dangerous. So the Drakthar changed tactics. They would not attack colonies next. They would strike at the source. Tasha Moore saw it coming. They're heading for the Sol system, she warned. Not to invade. To destroy the array's core. The core was not on Earth. It was in the Oort cloud, at the heart of the machine they had awakened. If it fell, the whole network would collapse. Earth prepared, not with fear but with quiet resolve. Families said goodbye not with tears but with promises. "We'll hold the line," said a young engineer in Cape Town. "So you can keep dreaming." Marcus and Nina returned to the Oort cloud, this time with a full defense fleet. They reinforced the core with every trick they had learned. Eli stationed ships in layers, scouts at the edge, fighters in the middle, and the big emitters near the core. Riley Cole led the scout wing, her eyes sharp, her hands steady. Then the Dracthar came. Not dozens, but hundreds of ships. They emerged from folded space like shadows tearing through fabric. Their command vessel alone was the size of a small moon, its surface crawling with dark energy. The battle began in silence. No radio chatter. No threats. Just light against dark. Human drones formed shifting walls of energy. The Dracthar fired their draining beams, but the Aegis absorbed them, feeding the light brighter. Still, the enemy pressed forward. Their numbers were overwhelming. On Steadfast, Eli watched the shields flicker. "We can't hold them all," he said. Then Lena Ortiz, who had come aboard to help coordinate the array, had an idea. "The array doesn't just block energy," she said. "It can redirect it. What if we don't stop their beams, but send them back?" Marcus, linked to the core from his station, understood. "We'll need perfect timing." One chance they waited. As the Dracthar command ship fired its largest beam, a river of pure void. Human ships parted like curtains. The beam shot straight toward the core, and the core caught it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the blue light turned white. The energy surged through the network, amplified, purified. And from every human ship, from every drone, from the core itself, a single pulse erupted, not of destruction, but of clarity. The Dracthar ships froze. Not broken, but stilled. Their dark energy unraveled, replaced by calm. The command vessel hung in space, silent. Its jagged edges now smooth, glowing faintly blue. The Dracthar were not dead. They were paused, held in a moment of peace they had long forgotten. On the bridge of Steadfast, no one cheered. They simply exhaled. Back on Earth, people looked up at the night sky and felt something new. Not fear, not pride, but hope. The galaxy had laughed at them, but humans had not laughed back. They had built a light strong enough to silence the dark, and now the Council would have to listen. The Galactic Council mocked Earth Plea. Then the humans stood up Part 4 after the battle at the Oort cloud. Silence fell across the solar system. The Dracthar armada hung motionless, wrapped in a soft blue glow, caught in a stasis that was neither life nor death. Earth ships held position, engines idling, weapons powered down. No one fired. No one moved. They simply watched, waiting to see if the darkness would return. On Varela, the Galactic Council was in chaos. High Arbiter Zelkor paced his chamber, his silver robes trailing behind him like storm clouds. Reports flooded in from every sector. The human defense had not just held, they had neutralized the Dracthar without killing a single soul. The Council's own fleets, which had fled or hidden during the attacks, now looked weak and cowardly by comparison. The Zenthars were the first to speak plainly. "We underestimated them," said Elder Crix, his voice sharp but honest. "They did not seek to conquer. They sought to protect, even us." The Korthans, slow to change but wise in their own way, rumbled in agreement. "The humans stood when we stepped back. That is the mark of true strength." Zelkor refused to accept it. "They acted without council approval. They tampered with ancient tech they do not understand. This could unravel everything." But even his closest allies began to doubt. The truth was spreading faster than any decree could stop it. Across the galaxy, species that had once sneered at Earth now whispered its name with awe. Refugees from fallen colonies spoke of human ships arriving like angels of light, saving lives the Council had abandoned. Then came the message no one expected. It was not from Earth. It was from the Dracthar command vessel. A single pulse of data, clean and clear, arrived at every major hub, including the Celestial Spire and Unity Ring orbiting Earth. Inside was not a threat but a memory, images of a time long past when the Dracthar were not monsters but builders. They had been part of the Aegix Alliance too once, but something had gone wrong. A war. A plague of the mind. A corruption that turned their light to shadow. They had not chosen evil. They had lost themselves. Lena Ortiz was the first to understand. They're not enemies, she told Daniel. They're victims. And the Aegis didn't destroy them. It gave them a chance to remember. This changed everything. The Council could no longer pretend the Drakthar were just a force of destruction. And they could no longer pretend humans were primitive. Days passed. Then a small ship left Virella. It flew no Council colors. It carried only one passenger. High Arbiter Zelkor himself. He arrived at Unity Ring alone, wearing simple robes, his usual arrogance gone. Daniel and Lena met him at the airlock. There were no guards. No speeches. Just three beings standing in the quiet hum of a station built by hands that had once been called unworthy. I come to ask, Zelkor said, his voice low, not as arbiter but as one who was wrong. Daniel nodded. We're listening. Zelkor explained that the Council's outer colonies were falling. The Drakthar had been just the beginning. Other threats stirred in the dark. Scavenger fleets, rogue AI, ancient machines waking with no memory of peace. The Council's old ways of control and secrecy had failed. They needed help. We ask for your aid, Zelkor said. Not as masters, but as partners. Lena looked at Daniel. They did not smile. They did not gloat. They simply remembered how it felt to stand on that platform and be laughed at. We will help, Daniel said, but on our terms. The terms were simple. Full membership for Earth in the Unified Accord. Equal voice in all decisions. Shared access to the Aegis network. Not to control it, but to maintain it together. And one more thing. The Council would publicly admit its failure and honor those Earth had saved. Zelkor hesitated. Pride still clung to him like old dust. But he saw the truth in their eyes. Humanity was not asking for power. They were offering a new way. Agreed, he said. Back on Earth, the news brought quiet joy. Not wild celebration, but deep relief. They had not won by force. They had won by standing firm. By showing that strength could be kind, and that unity was not weakness. Now came the real work. Marcus and Nina led teams to every major colony, teaching others how to link with the Aegis array. Riley Cole flew supply runs to refugee camps, her ship loaded with food, medicine, and hope. Eli Dawson trained joint crews, humans. Virelians, Corthans, side by side, learning each other's signals, each other's rhythms. Tasha Moore worked with Zenthar cryptographers to build a new galactic network, one open, honest, and shared. No more hidden alerts, no more lies. Then came the call from Helios Reach. A Council colony near the Inner Rim was under attack, not by the Drakthar, but by a splinter fleet of scavengers who had heard of the chaos and smelled blood. They had old warships, jury-rigged and brutal, and they cared nothing for treaties or light. The new alliance responded fast. A mixed fleet jumped to Helios Reach. Human ships with Aegis emitters, Virelian cruisers with precision shields, Corthan heavy carriers bristling with armor. But the scavengers were clever. They used drones to jam signals, and they attacked in waves, wearing down defenses. The colony's shields flickered. Panic spread. On the bridge of Steadfast, Eli studied the battle map. They're targeting the power core, he said. If it goes, the whole colony falls. Riley's voice crackled over the comm. I can get close. Drop a shield emitter right on top of it. Too risky, Eli said. Their drone cloud will shred you. Then I'll take the whole cloud with me, she replied. Before anyone could stop her, Riley's fighter shot forward, weaving through fire like a bird through storm. Behind her, a swarm of human drones followed, not firing but broadcasting a focused Aegis pulse. The scavenger drones, built to disrupt, had no defense against pure coherence. One by one, they went dark. Riley reached the colony's core. She dropped the emitter. Blue light flared, wrapping the colony in a new shield. But her ship took a hit. It spun, trailing smoke. Riley, Eli called. Get out. Already on it, she said, voice calm. She ejected just before her fighter exploded. A Corthan rescue pod scooped her from space minutes later. On the ground, colonists cheered. Not just for the shield, but for the pilot who had risked everything. The scavenger fleet, seeing their advantage gone, fled after the battle. The Council held a ceremony. Not in the grand hall of the Celestial Spire, but on the surface of Helios Reach under open sky. Zelkor stood beside Daniel and Eli. He placed a medal, not of metal but of woven light, on Riley's chest. Today, he said to the crowd, we learned that courage has no species. It has only heart. That night, around campfires and in quiet rooms, beings from a dozen worlds shared stories. A Varelian child asked a human engineer how Earth's cities stayed green. A Korthan elder taught a young pilot a song older than stars. And far away in the Oort cloud, the Drakthar command vessel pulsed gently, as if dreaming of light. Earth had not just defended itself. It had reminded the galaxy what it meant to stand together. And for the first time in a long time, the stars felt less lonely. The Galactic Council mocked Earth Plea. Then the humans stood up. 5 months passed and the galaxy began to heal. The old council was gone, replaced by the reformed Accord, a union not of power but of purpose. Earth held a permanent seat, not because it demanded one, but because it had earned it through action, not words. Daniel Brooks now walked the halls of the Celestial Spire, not as a beggar but as an ambassador. His voice calm, his presence respected. Beside him, Lena Ortiz advised on science and ethics, ensuring that the Aegis array was never used as a weapon, only as a shield for all. The Drakthar remained in stasis, but they were no longer feared. Teams of human, Varelian, and Xanthar scientists studied the command vessel, not to dissect it but to understand. They learned that the Drakthar mind had been twisted by a long-forgotten plague, a corruption in their neural network that fed on fear and isolation. The Aegis pulse had not destroyed them. It had paused the corruption, giving their true selves a chance to return. Slowly, gently, they began to wake, not as conquerors but as mourners, grieving the harm they had caused while lost in darkness. On Earth, life changed in quiet ways. Children grew up learning not just their own history, but the stories of Korthan sky singers and Xanthar starweavers. Schools taught cooperation as much as math. Cities grew gardens on rooftops and shared power through clean grids that hummed with Aegis-linked energy. People still argued, still made mistakes, but they remembered the lesson of the Spire. Division made you weak. Unity made you strong. Marcus Bell and Nina Ruiz led the Aegis Stewardship, a new branch of the Accord dedicated to maintaining the ancient network. They traveled from system to system, helping worlds activate their own nodes. On a dusty moon near the rim, they met a young Korthan engineer who had rebuilt a broken tower using parts from old harvesters. "My grandfather said the light would return," she told them, "but I didn't believe him until I saw your ships." Riley Cole, now recovered from her injuries, trained the first Joint Flight Academy. Students from a dozen species learned to fly together, not in formation but in harmony. They practiced rescue drills, energy weaving, and silent communication, skills that saved lives without firing a shot. Eli Dawson oversaw the program, his stern face softening whenever a Varelian cadet helped a human one fix a thruster, or when a Xanthar shared a quiet joke that made everyone laugh. Tasha Moore built the Open Net, a galaxy-wide communication system with no secrets, no hidden layers. Every world could send messages, share data, ask for help. When a solar flare threatened a farming colony on the edge of Xanthar space, Earth sent early warnings. When a Korthan city faced a water shortage, Brazilian engineers sent filtration designs. Help flowed both ways, freely, without price. Then came the day the Drakthar fully awoke. It happened not with alarms, but with music. A low, deep tone rose from the command vessel, a song of sorrow and hope. The Drakthar sent a message, simple and clear. "We remember. We are sorry. We wish to help." The Accord debated. Some feared a trick. But Daniel spoke for Earth. They were lost. We were lost once too. Who are we to deny them a second chance? So the Drakthar were welcomed, not as members yet, but as guests. They offered their knowledge of deep space currents and ancient ruins. They helped rebuild colonies they had once destroyed, their massive hands gentle as they placed stones and planted trees. One evening, Daniel stood on a balcony of the rebuilt Celestial Spire, looking out at the stars. Zelkor joined him, no longer arbiter but co-chair of the new council. "You changed everything," Zelkor said. "We didn't change it," Daniel replied. "We just reminded you what was already there. Unity, compassion, the will to stand up, not for glory but for each other." Below them, beings of all kinds walked together, humans in simple clothes, Varelians in flowing robes, Korthans with young ones on their shoulders, Xanthars chatting with Drakthar elders. No guards, no barriers, just people. Back on Earth, in a small town in Kansas, a little girl named Maya pointed up at the night sky. Her grandfather sat beside her on the porch. "Are we alone out there, Grandpa?" she asked. He smiled. "Not anymore. And we never really were." We just forgot to look up and say hello. In Tokyo, students gathered in a park to watch a live feed from Helios Reach, where the first joint peace garden was being planted. Seeds from Earth, Virella, Korthar, and even Drakthar soil mixed in one bed. In Lagos, engineers tested a new Aegis-powered water purifier that would soon be sent to dry worlds. In Buenos Aires, musicians played a song that blended human guitar, Korthan drums, and Zenthar chimes. The galaxy was not perfect. There would still be disagreements, accidents, hard days. But now, when trouble came, no one faced it alone. Years later, when new species reached out from distant arms of the galaxy, scared and unsure, it was Earth that answered first. Not with weapons, not with demands, but with a simple message. You are seen. You are welcome. We stand with you. And so humanity, once mocked as primitive, became the heart of a new kind of strength, one built not on conquest, but on care. Not on fear, but on faith in each other. The stars still burned bright, but now they burned together,